Hey guys, it's Dr. Ourian. Welcome back to second episode of our podcast. Today we're going to talk about liposuction, everything you need to know about liposuction. If you're interested in having liposuction, if you had questions, we are here to make this process simple for you. I want you to understand everything that it entails. First question I always get is, how did we get here? How was liposuction created? When was it created? Actually goes back to even the 1920s, where in France they try to excise fat in really crude ways that led to a lot of complications. And finally, in the 1970s, in Italy, there was a surgeon by the name of Dr. Fisher, and he was actually a gynecologist and started using some of these suction cannulas that they used to use for abortions, actually, or DNCs, and he used those cannulas to start suctioning fat. So believe it or not, liposuction goes back to actually gynecologists who established kind of the basic tenets of liposuction. Um, Further refinements were made, obviously, it was made safer. Finally, in 1982, there was a French surgeon that started injecting saline into the fat that kind of separates things and helped suction out the fat. And finally, 1985, Dr. Klein, who's a dermatologist here actually in California, used the tumescent method. And here's where we are today. The tumescent method. What is tumescent solution? What is tumescent liposuction? So we inject things, mainly two medications. Number one is lidocaine to keep you comfortable, to reduce the pain level you're having during the procedure, afterwards, after you wake up, or awake if you're having that procedure awake. And number two is epinephrine. That prevents bleeding and bruising. So this was, again, the beginning of this huge era of liposuction, to the point now where we are in 2025, where liposuction is the most common procedure, the most common cosmetic procedure done in the United States and around the world. So again, I want this to be a very informal discussion about liposuction. I want you to know everything there is to know. So let's get started. I have some questions that some patients have sent in, and some of the most common questions I get. So what is liposuction 360? We always talk about Lipo 360. What is that? Liposuction 360, it typically involves suctioning the abdomen, the love handles on the flanks, the lower back, the mid back, bra rolls. It's essentially the entire upper torso. And when you get liposuction, you don't want to look weird. You want to look proportional. You don't want there to be fat in one area or another area suctioned out. So I like to take a comprehensive approach to a torso. I look at a torso and I want to treat it in one subunit. Everything should be suctioned. Everything should be proportional. So that's liposuction 360. This term has been thrown around a lot. What does that mean? Again, it's the entire torso that is suctioned. And then, of course, you can add on arms, you can add on legs, thighs. You can even add in ankles. People have cankles. People want their forearms suctioned, so their necks. So the opportunities to suction different areas and contour are really endless. So that's the first question. What is 360 liposuction? And one thing I want to stress is, everybody asks me, coming in for a consultation, hey, Dr. Ourian, how much weight am I going to lose after liposuction? It's important to understand that liposuction is not a weight loss operation, period. Liposuction is a body contouring, body sculpting procedure where we are shaping and contouring your body. So that's a very important thing to understand, is I'm not going to help you lose weight. That is done through going to the gym, by eating healthy, having a healthy lifestyle. But liposuction will not help you accomplish losing weight. It's not a substitute for a healthy lifestyle, for working out, for eating well. It'll just kind of, those little stubborn areas you just can't get rid of at the gym. That's what liposuction is helpful for. Who's a good candidate? Patients come in thinking they want liposuction, and in reality, they're not a great candidate. So who is a good candidate? Number one is you have good skin quality. What is good skin quality is, typically patients who want liposuction on their abdomen and they have loose skin from pregnancy, you're probably not a great candidate for liposuction. You need to have good skin quality. So that's the number one thing we look at. More on skin elasticity and quality to come. But number two is you need to have a healthy body mass index. You need to be in good shape otherwise. Body mass index is a measure of how much fat you have based on your height. And there's usually a cutoff of at some point where you say, you know what, you need to lose weight first through, bariatric surgery or dieting and exercise prior to getting liposuction. My cutoff is about 35, and different surgeons have different opinions about that, but mine is about 35. Those are kind of the two major qualifications, and just being overall healthy. If you're a smoker, I won't operate on smokers. They just have too many complications in terms of wound healing. The last thing you want to do is be dealing with an open wound. If you need to be healthy, absolutely no smoking to make you a good candidate. And let's talk about, males, females. I do liposuction on both. I am one of the few surgeons really in the US that does a lot of liposuction on men. So men and women are getting liposuction. Really, there's a huge rise in men getting liposuction. It's become a really big thing. As more and more people are learning about liposuction and cosmetic surgery, certainly with social media, Instagram, TikTok, people are learning more about it, and they're interested and they want to know more about it and want surgery. Let's go back to skin quality and skin elasticity. This will really determine which direction you're going to go. For example, let's take your abdomen. If you have a lot of loose skin from pregnancy, you may not be a good candidate for liposuction. You may be a better candidate for a tummy tuck. So the quality of skin will really determine what you're a candidate for. So if you have really loose skin, you're definitely going to need a tummy tuck. But what if you have something in the middle? It's not super tight, it's not super loose. With the advent of technology called Renuvion J Plasma, it's a radiofrequency skin tightening device done at the same time as liposuction. That has revolutionized how we are treating patients. These patients may have required skin excision in the past, leading to scars, but now we can treat these patients with Renuvion J Plasma skin tightening at the same time as doing liposuction, really sparing a lot of scars and things like that on patients. So again, those are the people in the middle. They don't have tight skin, they don't have super loose skin, but in the middle, those are perfect candidates for skin tightening at the same time as liposuction. Let's talk about how it's done. Number one is you got to come in for a consultation. This shouldn't be done over the phone. This shouldn't be done via FaceTime, Zoom. That surgeon has to see you, pinch your skin, see what kind of quality that has before we operate. So you come in for a consultation. We spend an hour together. In my practice, I block off an hour for my consultations because this is a important step in your life. You're having plastic surgery. It's surgery. You're going to go under general anesthesia. And it's important to make sure we talk about the safety, make sure you're generally healthy for it, and make sure we're on the same page in terms of expectations. And that's number one. You're going to come in for a consultation. Here we have a very warm, inviting luxury practice in Beverly Hills. We are right on Bedford Drive in the Golden Triangle, Beverly Hills, really the mecca or the headquarters of plastic surgery. So that's step one. You come in for a consultation and we talk. During that consultation, we come up with a plan. Where we're going to lipo, how we're going to do it, whether you want to do this under general anesthesia or awake. And we'll talk about awake liposuction in a minute. So once we have our plan, you sign up for surgery. I must see my patients at least twice before surgery. So after you sign up for surgery, I still need to see you again for a formal preoperative visit where we go over all of your questions, all of the detailed instructions. We spend another hour together to make sure we are all on the same page. You have all your questions answered. Your job after that is not to worry about anything. Your job is just to show up to the procedure. Um, Depending on your age, we may need to send you to your medical doctor to get clearance. Again, safety is number one. We want to make sure you are healthy. We draw labs to make sure you are ready to roll and safe under anesthesia or awake. So that's before we even get to the operating room. So, okay, we've done that part. You're healthy. You're ready to roll. You're not a smoker. Your labs are okay. The next thing we do is we meet at the surgery center. I operate at surgery centers that are Quad ASF certified. I use anesthesiologists that are board certified. I myself, I'm double board certified. I'm on the clinical faculty at Cedars. So number one, again, back to safety. We keep you safe. We meet at that surgery center in the pre-op area, and we do all of our markings. This is the chance that we, artistically are going to sculpt out where we want to suction, where we want to focus on. It's not just about suctioning; it's about where do we want to leave a little bit of fat behind for a perfect contour? Where do we want to add fat, perhaps in a Brazilian butt lift? So we do all of our markings at that time. And the important thing in my technique that's different than really a lot of other surgeons here in this building, we're at the 436 North Bedford Drive, or I would say there's 30 plastic surgeons. What makes me different from the other plastic surgeons is that I do high definition liposuction. So when I mark you, I'm going to mark your natural anatomy, your abs that are there, that are naturally there, but just covered with a little bit of extra fat. And that's the time to mark your anatomy and give you high definition and not just look flat, but I want you to be toned and defined. And that's what my high definition liposuction is, a little bit different than the other plastic surgeons in the area. And this is done again during the markings in the preoperative area. Mark your abs, mark where your natural anatomy is, mark on your back where your butt starts, the contours of your butt, so we can make a transition from lower back to butt. All that is done in the preoperative area. Great. We've gone that far. Markings are done. You are in the pre-op area. You're going to meet your anesthesiologist. You will have already met them, talked to them. You're going to know who they are. So the morning of surgery, it's not a surprise. They're going to go over your history. And the next person you're going to meet is the nurse. The nurse will start an IV. Once that IV is started, we are ready to roll back to the operating room. The operating room is my favorite room in the world. I enjoy myself in there. I have fun. And yes, we do listen to music while we're operating. I have my own operating room playlist. So we are now in the operating room. You go to sleep, and we clean you off with a sterile solution. We put sterile drapes, and now we're ready to start. The question I always get is, Dr. Ourian, how big are these scars? I make a 5 millimeter incision or even a 4 millimeter incision hidden in very inconspicuous places in your body. For example, for women and men, I go beneath the bikini or the bathing suit line and hide that incision there. No one's going to see it. I hide incisions in the belly button. No one's going to see that. So these incisions are all hidden well. The whole point of this is you want to keep them guessing. You don't want anybody to know that you've had liposuction. So incision placement is super important. I try to do liposuction through the least number of ports that I can, least number of incisions, to lead to, again, less noticeable scars. So great, we've planned our ports, we planned our incisions. Incisions are made. Going back to the history of liposuction, I use my tumescent technique and kind of focus on the areas that we're going to suction. And once that sits for a few minutes, we start suctioning. I use the micro air power assisted liposuction, which in my opinion is far superior than any other suction device. I start suctioning, contouring, take out just the right amount of fat. Once that's done and you're snatched and I'm happy, that's when we'll move on to the remove the angioplasma if that's what you need in your skin quality. After that, we put on a garment for you, a compression garment. You wake up in the recovery room and you are all done. Now, I understand that a lot of people don't want to undergo general anesthesia. And in certain circumstances, I can do a lot of this liposuction awake. It's actually not as painful as you may think. I give you a little bit of a medication, give you a couple of cocktail. It's a medication that you put under under your tongue. It just keeps you calm. And then obviously I numb up the areas, and I can do this while you're awake. This is good for patients who want just a couple small areas done. It's not good if you want your entire torso, 360, and your arms and your legs. That doesn't quite make sense. At that point, you want to go under general anesthesia. So that's the procedure. You're gonna have the procedure done. You're gonna wake up with a garment, and now let's move on to recovery. The first question I get is downtime. Dr. Ourian, I have 3 kids at home. Dr. Ourian, I work. How long do I need to take off after my procedure? I typically tell patients you're going to be sore. Like you had a really intense workout, you're going to feel sore and tender for about 5 to 7 days. That doesn't mean you're going to be in bed for 5 to 7 days. You are just going to be tender and sore. You're going to be walking on day 1 after the surgery. You're not going to be stuck in bed. Actually, I don't want you to stay in bed. I want you to heal, walk around. So that is the quote unquote downtime. The other thing to keep in mind is your post-op, you're going to be wearing your compression garment for 6 weeks. We provide you with a garment. You're going to be wearing that for 6 weeks. The next aspect of post-operative care in liposuction is lymphatic massage. This has also revolutionized healing. We have a lymphatic masseuse here in my office. All of that extra fluid and swelling is milked towards your lymph nodes. There are these nodes that live in your groin, in your armpits. Those lymph nodes suck up that fluid and dump it into your bloodstream, and you just pee it out. So lymphatic massage is really important. I make this mandatory for my patients to get lymphatic massage after surgery to enhance and speed up your healing. So far we have garment and lymphatic massage. Patients ask me, okay, when can I return to work? When can I return to working out? And I say typically, if you're just having liposuction and no other procedures, I would say about 2 to 3 weeks back in the gym. Another question I always get is, Dr. Ourian, I heard that the fat can go somewhere else. Is that true? And the answer is no. The fat, once it's suctioned, all that fat has been emptied out. You're born with the exact number of fat cells you're going to have. They just grow or get smaller. So once we suction out those fat cells, they're gone forever. And it's not going to quote unquote go somewhere else. So as long as you maintain a healthy lifestyle, you're going to eat well, you're going to exercise, your results should be maintained. So you've had your surgery done, you've had your lymphatic massages done, you wore your garment for 6 weeks. Awesome. A+ student. What's next? Now it's your job to maintain a healthy lifestyle and healthy eating habits. What does that mean? What do I like my patients to eat after surgery? Is I recommend they have a high protein diet. You want muscles to build, you want low fat, and you want low carbohydrates and refined sugars. That's what I recommend to my patients. Regular exercising at the gym, all that stuff is important. You're investing so much of your time, your money, your energy, your recovery, and then to kind of ruin it by going and having an unhealthy lifestyle just doesn't make any sense. That being said, a lot of my patients, once they have liposuction or plastic surgery, they get really motivated and they get into this different state of mind. It gets them like on this track that I want to maintain my results. It kind of jumpstarts this whole new process of let's change my lifestyle. Let's keep this. Let's maintain these results for years to come. So I hope this was educational and informative for you. There's a lot of information that you see on the internet that you read. You're going to chat GPT. I want you to hear from an expert, a double board certified plastic surgeon who does this procedure very routinely. So it's important to get accurate information. I hope you found it useful. If you're interested in consultation, come on in. We're here in Beverly Hills on Bedford Drive. Let's talk about what you want, what your goals are, what you're a candidate for. Let's get you to the body you've always wanted. We will see you on our next episode of our podcast. We're going to be talking about mommy makeovers. We're also going to be talking about some of the psychology of plastic surgery and some of the wellness and mindfulness going into plastic surgery. Again, thanks for joining us, and we will see you next week.